Alright, this is take two. Just to double check, I'm actually recording. Yes, okay. Finally, okay, so this is actually take two. The other time the battery shut off, even though it had a full battery, it was actually the second thing. It was the SD card that was the issue. But anyway, so Sanctuary by William Faulkner is 1931 novel that came out. And it is Southern Gothic, obviously. That's his like kind of main kind of area of expertise, or that's how a lot of people tend to describe Faulkner. There's similarities to maybe not so much of a contemporary, but Flannery O'Connor's probably took an early influence, and then also Cormac McCarthy too. Was like Cormac McCarthy's like early works definitely like gave me major Faulkner vibes too, like The Orchard Keeper and Child of God, in particular, with the kind of criminal activity and like this, the kind of mundane kind of southern drawl of of just a kind of the rustic kind of simplicity of like the land around them, paired with like this violent kind of just like ungodly, but like there's like a weird kind of analogous themes of the religious, or like religious like overtones going on a lot. But I'm not sure if Faulkner was religious like Flannery O'Connor, who is Catholic, but he definitely sometimes there's questions of faith and stuff like kind of simmer throughout these kind of books. But so Sanctuary tells a story about a lawyer. It starts off with a man named Horace Benbow, who is a kind of like at not really a middle-life crisis, but he's not really too satisfied with his life. So he's trying to find something. So he goes into this. He's trying to find something meaningful to do. So he's like goes into this town named Yucca. I'm gonna mess this up real big because it's a Mississippi town. So it's Yaknapatapa. Yaknapatapa. Okay, sorry. I'm not gonna try to butcher that, but it's not. It was Faulkner's own hometown. At first, I thought it was kind of a not magic realism, but kind of like a semi-fictionalized kind of maybe Roman de Clef kind of using these places. But he sometimes, I think with like The Sound of the Fury, he actually does make them up. I think certain things, but then other times it's hard to tell. This place in Mississippi, this county, and he tries it's very kind of rundown, kind of rambunctious, I don't want to say derelict necessarily, but definitely a lot of different kind of bootleggers and easy riders and kind of highway robbery and kind of classic, just kind of a den of crime and vice is what I got, the image I kind of got of this town. And Horace tries going in there and trying to like kind of with his chin up, and he's like kind of head over heels. I'm sorry, maybe not head, but kind of in over his head. That's the correct thing. It's not a romance novel in that sense. It's very anti-romantic, I found. But yeah, he's very quixotic. He's trying to fix this kind of town and trying to like do something right. So he's like gets himself involved, and he's with these people named. He's trying to Gowen. There's this guy named Gowen, or I'm sorry, Goodwin. No, wait. There's actually two. There's a Goodwin and a Gowen, so I'm gonna get them mixed up. So you have to. But yeah, there's Gowen is more of a. Or I'm sorry, Goodwin is one of the associates who he's trying to track down this man named Popeye, I think, because Popeye is the main kind of antagonist of this novel, and he is basically like a very sly enough to kind of maneuver his way around, but also very kind of sensual. He's very like a fearful character too. He does a lot of this out of fear, and he's been brought up, and there's a lot of questions of like what what kind of validations, or not to excuse it, but what kind of things that bred him into this kind of lifestyle of like gambling and bootlegging, and this takes place in the Prohibition era, so this is especially a hot topic, and this is set in 1929, so this is like right at the, I want to say like maybe the tail end of the Prohibition, so that whole decade of like not only just like the Great Depression and that, but also with these legal kind of proceedings and all these different things that people thought anti-constitutional. Other people thought it was overstepping the government's bounds. And yeah, there's Popeye. At first he seems to be kind of like a petty criminal. He's like dealing kind of under the table kind of alcoholic drinks, or like not just moonshine and stuff like that. He's like he doesn't really seem to be like that bad, I guess. He's just kind of he's just mixed in with the bad crowd. But things get kind of ugly because he's I guess he's one thing leads to another. And then there's this young lady by the name of Temple Drake, who I think is like kind of his she comes from, I think, like kind of a richer family, who's a judge, and her father actually ends up being one of the judges on the jury, I believe, kind of serving. And then, but basically, Temple Drake is a complicated character because, one hand she's so like taken advantage of, obviously exploited and abused, literally raped by Popeye. That's like the centerpiece of the novel. Is like, like the main thing is that he, using a corn cob of all things, like it just like defiles her, and that is the worst thing you can think of. Like like he abducts her and then makes her stay at this place, like this basically a whorehouse. They call it there's a particular name for it. I can't remember what they call it. Like a can't remember. But yeah, he keeps her there to kind of, and is like trying to keep quick on his toes and trying to like kind of cover his tracks so people don't find out. And because he's already getting kind of like indictments coming in possibly for this bootlegging thing, and he's like already associated, and his name is like already popping up, I guess, no pun intended. But yeah, he's like going around looking for he's trying to, and for nowhere, I don't know why he does it. I think he does it more for power, because like that's why, otherwise why wouldn't he kill her after that? Because it seemed like more like a weird transaction of power, and that for this town, this seems to be the weird kind of thing where the crowds of people are like especially way more angry about the rape and the defilement of Temple Drake than they are about the bootlegging and the other stuff. Rightly so. I mean, that seems to be the higher, like the worst crime. If you were to kind of tie these, Dante's Inferno, if you were to like kind of like put like the circles of hell, I think, I'm pretty sure, like the rape of someone would probably not bode as well. So yeah, and obviously Horace Benbow is shocked by this, and he's the one that kind of brings them to justice, and he has these like really high standards, and like he comes in and he's like looking, and he's like kind of walks in, excuse me, initially with kind of pardon me, with like high expectations that seem unreasonable almost, but now he's like kind of finding a means of like, okay, well, I can do X, Y, and Z, I can actually help out. And he like really brings this case to like a concrete kind of conclusion. And Popeye gets his just kind of comeuppance and is thrown in jail. And yeah, and then a lot of different things about like the main kind of hinging on what I find it was hinging on the most, the novel, and all the violence and all the unrest and uproar and the mob kind of. There's a lot of mob justice I find in this town. Like they're like it's kind of like Benbow shows up with like a like trying to kind of like really trying to fix something that's kind of already broken, like he can't something irreversible or unreversible, I'm not sure, something indelible, like already kind of past the point of no return. But later, because like I get the sense that the mob kind of mentality of the town is like a lot kind of geared towards like a vigilante type of justice, like like local things, or like lynchings aren't too far from the kind of, I guess, wheelhouse, I guess, of what's going on. And there's also the complicated kind of idea of Temple Drake being kind of a loose woman, like she's described as being sensuous and vacuous, like just kind of partying and a seductress of events, kind of a classic femme fatale, in a sense, or like at least that's what Faulkner kind of paints her as. So there's a kind of like thing of like, obviously she didn't deserve anything that got but there's a kind of I don't know, like a kind of a bizarre kind of like it's hard to think of like not there's no way you can actually like justify these kind of horrible high stakes like appalling crimes but she did get herself involved in the wrong crowd, and was like already I think like goes to these places and dancing and is described as a fast girl, and dancing with strangers and being like really seductive and flirtatious. And it's her own whatever, it's her life. But a lot of the people, I think some of the people say what I think like Popeye included, like basically would describe her as getting her just what she deserved. So but then you sort of think about Popeye too, like I don't think he was like necessarily born into this world like with this type of behavior in mind at all, like but I think it was kind of maybe bred into him, like he was like kind of pushed in a certain direction, maybe because of abuse or neglect, just familial, just kind of no soft matriarchal or no kind of concrete patriarchal kind of system going on. So maybe he didn't have parents that cared. Maybe he had, he was raised by an uncle. Maybe he was, I'm not sure. Like, I think Faulkner leaves most of this to the imagination as far as I know. But I am a bit kind of not sure, because I think, there's, it's been a few years since I've read it, but I think, in like other Faulkner novels, there's, he has characters kind of in a world of like what he's already built. And he has characters transcend multiple novels. So there's that going on with this, I think, a bit of that. But because I think Temple Drake shows up in a different novel. I'm not sure of the name of it. Definitely didn't read it. But yeah, there's another one called Absalom to Absalom, where the Quentin Compson shows up. The Compson family is like described as being like kind of an overarching Southern family, and like the fall of grace from, especially with The Sound of the Fury, where the Compsons were, like their claim to fame was like kind of a merchant kind of business, and they were looking to kind of like, the South will rise again was very much kind of the mentality of like Reconstruction, and even post-Reconstruction, well into the 30s too, with like, and then it wasn't really segregation. I mean, that was like, it wasn't until Faulkner died, right? So, and there's some trigger words that might be definitely might be offensive, and like there's various N-word kind of going on, like the way they kind of treated, like the characters in these novels treat them as like still subservient, or as if they have the upper hand on these, as if they're like lesser than human. So there's a lot of that kind of attitude of just kind of disgust towards them, and even still pervading, and I guess showing that. And Flannery O'Connor gets kind of in hot water too, because of like her use of like that, and not only that, but her own attitude too, of like kind of writing to her sister, I believe, like her thoughts on James Baldwin being kind of like loquacious, or just kind of like she didn't really think kindly to him, so or take him seriously. But anyway, so it's like a weird thing where that's kind of embedded like in the kind of social consciousness of, even though Flannery O'Connor also like wrote about upper class kind of Southern women that were aristocratic and very much hypocritical, and and basically kind of were clinging to their old ways. So but yeah, that is all I have for it's been Sanctuary. I think the title of this, I think it means not just like in a church. I mean, there's a church sanctuary, obviously. I think it's probably a bit of that classic, the profane and the profound kind of mixing of like, illicit kind of horrible things, like with a picture of like a sanctuary, of like a place of an asylum to go to. It could be a bird sanctuary. It could be just the classic sense, the definition of like a kind of sacristy kind of area of a church, where quiet place for people to find refuge. But yeah, this it was a little bit depressing. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Faulkner. I'm probably veering a little bit more towards Absalom, which I just finished recently, or As I Lay Dying too. But it has some good points. But like, yeah, it is really, really depressing. Obviously the subject matter kind of is, has, like, there's no other way of putting it. Like, you can't really be all too rosy when describing the kind of things that Faulkner kind of might have seen in his own life, and these are very kind of realist, I guess, attempts at portraying them. So, but yeah, that is all I have for today for Sanctuary. So, thanks for watching.